Ibrahim Traore had faced many battles in his life. As a leader of a nation on the brink of transformation, he carried the weight of countless decisions that could either uplift his people or plunge them deeper into despair. But today, he was a man stranded, vulnerable, and alone, a far cry from the indomitable figure who had navigated international politics, negotiated alliances, and stood tall before the world's leaders. He sat in the driver's seat of his car, sweat beading on his brow as he stared at the empty road stretching before him. The sun was beginning to sink, casting long shadows over the barren landscape, a silent reminder that he was powerless. In this moment, the engine sputtered, hesitated, and finally gave way to silence. His heart sank as the car coasted to a stop. The vehicle was dead, and with no cell service and no way to reach anyone, Ibrahim found himself trapped in the middle of nowhere. The vastness of the desert stretched in all directions, an endless sea of dust and sand. It was ironic, he thought. He had fought for years to reclaim his country from the clutches of foreign powers, to stand firm against corruption, and now, here he was, helpless in a remote stretch of land with no hope of help in sight. The vehicle's engine refused to start again, and Ibrahim exhaled deeply. He slammed his fist on the wheel in frustration. The harsh reality of the situation weighed heavily on him. The air around him was thick with heat, the quiet almost suffocating. His mind wandered back to the weight of his responsibilities, the thousands of lives depending on his decisions, the demands of his people, the pressure of diplomacy, the struggles with international adversaries. For a long time, he had felt as though he was carrying the burden of the world alone, and now, stranded here, he felt as though he had failed them. No one could reach him. The phone in his hand felt like a useless piece of technology, a reminder that there was no way to get help. He sat there for a long time, the silence wrapping around him, until he finally acknowledged that the only option left was to wait. Ibrahim had been in countless high-stakes negotiations, political battles, and wars, but never had he felt as alone as he did now. The isolation was suffocating, and for the first time in a long time, he felt the gnawing fear of being forgotten, of being irrelevant. But just as he resigned himself to the vast emptiness, a movement on the horizon caught his eye. At first it appeared as nothing more than a shimmer in the heat, but as it drew nearer, Ibrahim's pulse quickened. Someone was approaching. He squinted into the distance, trying to make out the figure. A woman, walking alone. Her pace steady, purposeful, as though she were heading straight toward him. Ibrahim's curiosity piqued. It was rare for anyone to travel on this remote stretch of road, let alone a woman, especially one walking alone. As she came closer, he could see that her clothes were simple, but her posture and movements exuded a quiet confidence. There was a serene grace to her, as though she belonged here, as though she was no stranger to this desolate land. She was close now, and Ibrahim could feel his anxiety begin to mix with a strange sense of anticipation. It wasn't just the fact that she was a woman traveling alone in such an unforgiving landscape. It was something in the air, an intangible sense of familiarity. But how could that be? He had never met her before, yet there was something about her presence that felt significant. "Excuse me," Ibrahim called out, his voice carrying across the open space between them. "Can you help me?" The woman didn't hesitate. Her gaze never wavered as she approached, her eyes calm and knowing. She was no longer a stranger. Now she was something more. An answer. A possibility. "I can," she replied simply, her voice soft yet filled with certainty. "I know how to fix this." Ibrahim blinked in surprise. The woman wasn't just any passerby. She seemed to know exactly what needed to be done. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't lost. She wasn't even surprised. It was as if this moment had been orchestrated from the start, as though she had known it was coming. Without waiting for a response, she bent down and began rummaging through her bag, pulling out a small, simple tool, a wrench, old and worn but still sturdy. Ibrahim watched in disbelief as she moved toward the car, as though she had done this 100 times before. She didn't need his instructions. She didn't need his approval. She simply worked with a quiet assurance that was almost unsettling. How? Do you know what to do? Ibrahim asked, more to himself than to her. He couldn't understand it. There was no reason for this woman, this stranger, to know anything about cars, let alone be able to fix one on the side of the road. The woman glanced up at him, her eyes meeting his with an odd familiarity. She paused for a moment before answering. I've been where you are before. I've learned to fix things that seemed broken. Not just cars, but people, not just engines, but lives. The words hit Ibrahim like a sudden storm. There was something deeply personal in her voice, a trace of something he couldn't quite place. But the strangest part was how she spoke to him, like she understood something about him that no one else could. Like she knew what was inside his soul. As she finished tightening the last bolt on the engine, she stepped back and wiped her hands on her clothes. The car sputtered to life, the engine humming smoothly. Ibrahim's jaw tightened. There was something unsettling about the way the woman worked. But it wasn't just her competence, it was something else. Something deeper. He could feel it in the pit of his stomach. Who are you? He asked, his voice low. For a long time, the woman didn't answer. She simply stood there, her gaze steady on him. Her silence spoke volumes, and Ibrahim could sense that she was weighing her next words carefully. Finally, she spoke again, but this time, her voice was different. It was softer, as though she was sharing something sacred, something intimate. You know me better than you think, she said quietly. I'm not a stranger. We've met before. Years ago, perhaps, but you don't remember. Ibrahim's heart skipped a beat. The weight of her words struck him like a hammer. He searched his memory, trying to recall the moment when they might have met. But he couldn't. There was nothing. Only the unsettling feeling that he was somehow being watched, observed by this woman who seemed to know more about him than he did himself. Where do we go from here? Ibrahim asked, almost to himself. His thoughts were clouded with confusion, doubt, and fear. Who was this woman? Why did she seem so familiar? Why was she here of all places at this moment in time? You've been lost for a long time, Ibrahim, the woman replied, her voice heavy with meaning. But the road you've been traveling on has led you here to this place, to this moment. The question isn't where we go from here. It's what you choose to do now. Ibrahim stared at her, his mind racing. He had spent so many years in pursuit of power, of control, of justice. But he had failed to realize that the real battle wasn't out there, on the world stage. It was within himself. I never wanted to fail, he murmured, his voice cracking. I wanted to save my people, to make a difference. And yet, the woman interrupted, you've forgotten that to change the world, you must first change yourself. For the first time in years, Ibrahim felt the weight of his own mistakes, the false promises, the broken relationships, the compromises, the betrayals. He had been so focused on the fight outside of him that he had lost sight of the fight within. But this woman, this stranger, had made him face it, and for the first time, he felt the stirrings of a transformation. The silence between them was filled with understanding. Ibrahim knew in that moment that he had been given a choice to either continue down the path of power and corruption, or to take a step back to heal, and to lead his people from a place of truth and integrity. The woman's words were like a balm to his wounded soul. You've always had the power to change, Ibrahim. You've just had to choose it. As the woman turned and walked away, Ibrahim remained standing by the car, watching her disappear into the distance. Her presence had been brief, but the impact she left on him would last a lifetime. He wasn't the man he had been before. He wasn't the same man who had walked into that desert. He was a man reborn. A man who understood that true leadership came from within, from the heart. And as the sun set on the horizon, Ibrahim Traore knew that his journey had only just begun. Call to action. If this story touched your heart, consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today. Thank you for watching.